Hey, what's your favorite Harry Potter movie? All of these movies are pretty solid in my opinion. A lot of people get hung up over the smaller, inconsequential details, like Harry's eye color, or his hair, or how Dumbledore reacts to Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire.
I protest!
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire.
But I mean, come on, cut the guy a break. He's not pissed at Harry, he was fucking worried. Worried that Harry was gonna get killed by a dragon, or drown.
You asked one of the oldest students to do it for you?
No, sir.
You're absolutely sure?
Yes, sir.
That was the first Triwizard Tournament since 1792, because people kept fucking dying. And for people to stop doing something just because people were dying in 1792 must have meant it was pretty bad. Anyway, Prisoner of Azkaban is probably up there as my favorite out of the 8. You could probably ask me again in like a month or two, and I'd probably switch it up on you and say Chamber of Secrets, but the fact remains that Prisoner is still up there. According to J.K. Rowling, writing Prisoner of Azkaban was a walk in the park. I really think it shows too. The mystery around Sirius Black and the big reveal near the end is still talked about to this day. Also, the Dementors are so cool. They've always been my favorite creature from the series. The movie does them justice too. They're not treated as some spooky horror monster, but you just know shit is gonna hit the fan before you see them because of how everything freezes over or seeing the character's breath in the air. Oh man, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Harry Potter too much like a big nerd. Sorry about that, gamers. I won't let it happen again. You can bet your bottom dollar that if there's a popular movie franchise, then there's probably going to be some video games to go along with them. Obviously, Harry Potter got that treatment. Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets home console versions of these games were third-person platformers. The Game Boy family of games got a mix of genres over the years, but most notably are the RPG games that all follow pretty much the same formula. All the games were published by EA, and the RPGs were developed by Kryptonite. Kryptonite was the company that did all the movie games, but they're probably most notable for the first LEGO Star Wars game on GBA. It's interesting to me that they chose to do an RPG over something like a side-scrolling platformer or something else of that nature. Like, they could have just reflavored the LEGO Star Wars games, but no, we're talking about Harry Potter, the JRPG. Don't get me wrong, I think it's really cool that they went this route. It's just that part of the reason games based off movies exist is to sell the actual movie. Most people probably expect something more action-adventure oriented like what came from Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, so to pick up this game and discover it's a boring, nerdy, turn-based RPG probably didn't represent the movie the right way to some people. But hey, this is all speculation, and truth be told, just putting Harry Potter on the box was probably enough to get people to buy it. We're talking about games based off a super popular franchise for the Game Boy family. The install base was probably bigger than Order of the Phoenix and Deathly Hallows put together. Yeah, install base. You like that one? Everybody loves talking about that now that they know what it is. I played Prisoner of Azkaban for GBA when I was like in kindergarten. I replayed it a couple of times years ago after I suddenly remembered it existed. This should be fun actually. I love RPGs, they're my favorite genre. So to finally review one, even if it is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for the Game Boy Advance, is still pretty exciting. The beginning of the game completely cuts out the Aunt Marge scene and the night bus scene. We're thrown directly into the leaky cauldron talking to Fudge. Harry has to explain to Fudge who Sirius Black is, and that's really funny to me. He's the minister, he should know who a serial killer is. I know Fudge is supposed to be incompetent, but the fact that this is how they're trying to use exposition to establish who Sirius Black is pretty funny. I really like these NPCs in the leaky cauldron, by the way. They could have just had them sitting at the tables, but they all have unique postures. David Tennant over here is wondering if he'll ever escape from Doctor Who. Unfortunately, this is the only time in the game where we see overworld sprites like this. In Harry's room, we have the first fight of the game. It's really simple since you don't have much in terms of spells at the beginning. It's a tutorial fight, the first rival battle in Pokemon of the Harry Potter RPGs, if you will. God, Mr. Weasley. You forgot your chef's hat, man. I can see the rat. Speaking of rats, we gotta get some rat tonic from the basement for Scabbers. This is the first dungeon and we immediately utilize field spells. Field spells are spells you use to interact with the environment. Flipendo is used to move objects and Lumos is used to light dark areas and reveal hidden bridges. Successfully using field spells will grant you experience, which is great. I wish more games did stuff like this, especially when you solve a puzzle that was off the beaten path. It feels like a nod from the developers, even if if it isn't that much EXP. That being said, there's really no use of field spells outside of the main objectives. There's only like one side quest in this game, and there's no hidden areas to find and solve puzzles with using these spells. A bit later, when Hermione shows up and we have to enter the next part of the dungeon, we're given the option to choose who Harry partners up with, but there's really no difference between the two choices since Ron's unique field spell is used to unlock doors, and Hermione's is used to fix broken paths. They seem unique from each other, but really, they serve the same purpose as obstacle removers that let you continue on the beaten path. If you don't choose Hermione, you basically go the whole game without having to use Reparo, but Ron's Alohomora is used to get treasure chests here and there. A funny thing is that in my playthrough, I thought Hermione using her Reparo on the book in the library cutscene was going to be the only time I saw it, but I actually ended up using it once on a bridge in a later part of the game. The thing is that you get Alohomora as soon as Ron joins. There's no point in the game where you see an obstacle with a chest on the other side that requires a spell that you need to get first before backtracking to get the chest. There's even a point in the game where you're given more field spells, and again, they're just obstacle removers, aside from Spongify, but again, it doesn't matter because it's not like you can do some side quests you couldn't do before with the spells. They're only used for required paths. Some of these chests are out of the way, sure. It's not like this game is gigantic. You're bound to just stumble upon these chests just by going from objective to objective. So really, the extra EXP you get from using spells doesn't feel earned and more like a way to give you a bit of a leg up if you've been skipping battles. Coming back with the rat tonic, we overhear Mr. Weasley talking about Sirius Black.
Harry, I want you to swear to me that whatever you might hear, you won't go looking for Black.
Then it's back down into the dungeon to save Scabbers and Crookshanks. Now that we're rolling around with a full party, battles are worth talking about. Magical encounters. On the field, enemies are represented by balls of light until you find out what they are. It makes things a little interesting, I guess. It at least makes it easier to find enemies for the bestiary, since a ball of light represents an enemy you haven't fought before. In battle, turn order is determined by the character's speed, and you can see the turn order in the top right corner. Everyone has similar spells except for a few. In addition, everyone is able to analyze enemies to see their weaknesses. However, there's only so many enemies, and I know it looks like there's a lot for this game from looking at the bestiary, but most of them are recolors. Also, the recolors don't have different weaknesses from the first version of them you encounter. In other words, once you know the weakness to one spider, you know the weakness of every spider. Each character has different specials. Ron uses stink pellets to stun enemies and Hermione uses lectures to grant buffs. Harry's special utilizes the main collectible in this game: trading cards. The art on the trading cards is nice. I like the cartoony style they gave to these characters. Actually, I wish the rest of the characters in the game were styled like these cards. There's unused portraits in the game's files that utilize this art style. They even have different expressions. They're more expressive and nicer to look at overall compared to the final portraits we got, which are just the actors from the movie. I understand why they use the portraits instead. This game's essentially a billboard for the movie, and you need to have recognizable faces on your billboard. Anyway, if you have 3 cards in a row from a given category, you can use that special. Harry can do a multitude of things, ranging from doing damage and healing, to granting buffs and getting extra EXP. Spells are leveled up by simply using them. It reminds me of Superstar Saga's bro moves, where you have to use the bro moves a certain amount of times before you get the upgraded versions. This is a good way to incentivize the player to use MP. I'm one of those people who tend to hoard their MP or PP or whatever it's called in the game I'm playing. I'm always paranoid that I'm going to run out and then encounter a tough enemy or a boss, but games like this and Superstar Saga force you to come out of your comfort zone if you want to be able to improve. In the case of Superstar Saga, where there's different action commands for each move, incentivizing the player to use bro moves more often gets them more familiar with the action command timing, ensuring that they're prepared to use it when it really counts, and rewarding them with an advanced version after they've really got it down. But this isn't Superstar Saga, I gotta get back on track here. Something else about using MP to level up is that you don't have to use the highest level of a move to get to the next one. Using a level 1 spell grants 1 point towards the next spell level, and using a level 2 spell grants 2 points. Presentation wise, these battles look pretty good. The sprites are animated and the effects for spells are really cool. I especially love the Incendio and Glacius spells. At their highest levels they look super impactful. The ice breaking in the Glacius spell sounds great. I love the way ice spells sound in games. It's really satisfying when it's done well. Like in Earthbound, PSI Freeze doesn't necessarily sound like ice, but the sound effect still sounds really cool.
Because we really need to get rid of that Starman Super. Fuck! Fuck, how did I not see that coming?
Leveling up a character gives them a full heal. This sounds convenient, which it would be, but you'll find later on that you'll level up pretty quickly in this game. If you use Hermione's special to give an EXP boost, then even more so. The only way to recover health out in the field is through potions. There's no healing spells, and if you don't want to use potions, then you have to go to the nurse to heal, which can be a pretty far walk depending on where you are. I just found myself waiting for level ups to get healed and I was fine. Characters also get EXP even if they were knocked out. Thank God, I hate it when a party member dies on me just before the end of a battle and they miss out on getting EXP. At least half would work too. Like, I know they didn't make it to the end, but they still experienced the battle, you know? There is 6 equipment slots for each character. It's a little much. Considering each piece of equipment does the same thing, they probably should have just kept it to 3 clothing slots and an accessory. There's no equipment in this game that grants a special effect like fire resist or healing over time effects. They only boost your defense and agility. There's some equipment that only certain characters can wear, but there's really no point considering that it doesn't do anything special like I said. Even the accessories don't have special effects, and that's usually the piece of equipment that gets that kind of treatment. After our second jaunt into the cellar, we're finished with the Leaky Cauldron and we get to move on to the Hogwarts Express. We get to explore and talk to some NPCs before getting attacked by the Dementor, which according to J.K. Rowling, Dementors were the original personification of depression before webcomic artists really hit the scene. We're finally at Hogwarts, which means quite a bit has opened up to us. Yeah, you see, I'm trying to avoid saying things like a lot has opened up to us, or anything to insinuate that this game is bigger than it actually is. It took me a little over 8 hours to beat it, and I came close to getting all the collectible cards, so a 100% playthrough would probably take you 10 hours or so, maybe 11 to 15 if you count getting to level 100 and getting all the equipment as a completionist thing, but even that might be a little generous. So what has opened up to us? Cool thing is that we can leave Hogwarts immediately to explore the grounds and grab some stuff before moving on. You can even tussle with enemies you're probably not supposed to fight until later on, but they're there if you want to take a crack at them. And even if you lose, the penalty isn't super severe or anything. It just puts you back at the beginning of an area you were in. The environments in this game aren't poorly made or anything. The inside of the castle and the classrooms are really well done, but leaving the castle, you can see some kinks in the grass, and the perspective messes with me a little bit. For instance, in the Leaky Cauldron cellar, the columns are like italicized. They give me the impression that everything is slanted. In my opinion, they should be going straight up to simulate depth. It's at Hogwarts that we can find out about the second purpose for the collectible cards besides being used for Harry's specials. If you collect every card in a category, you can unlock a chest in the Wizard Card Club room. I opened 2 chests on my first playthrough. The first one was a minigame and the second granted me 2 whole levels. That's crazy because you can buy cards from Fred and George in bulk and fill out the list in no time. It seems to me that there are only 5 cards that you can't get from Fred and George, those being the ones shown at the end with the key icon next to them. The rest of the chests have equipment, except for the Quidditch chest, which has a piece of equipment and another level. Fred and George have a shop where you can buy wizard weed. Yeah, man, gonna buy me some of that Hufflepuff. You know what I mean? Some of that Slither heroin, you know? Some fucking hard crack cocaine. They sell equipment that's a little pricey. Not that I was gonna buy any. I always feel like a bozo when I cash in on expensive gear, only to find it 10 minutes later in the dungeon I was gonna go into anyway. Exploring Hogwarts is a bit of a novelty at first, but it kind of becomes irritating as the game goes on. There's a portrait room where you can essentially warp to each floor of the castle, but let's be real here, there's no way you're gonna know which portrait leads where on the first try, so you end up going back and forth before you finally get it right. Also, you move pretty slow in this game, like just slow enough for you to notice that things are taking a little too long. In fact, a lot of things in this game are slow. The battles have like, I don't know, a buffer or something between each action that's like 2 seconds too long. This wouldn't be too much of a problem, but you can't mash A to speed through the text boxes, so you're forced to wait. It makes it very tempting to frame skip if you're playing on an emulator. The victory screen is also slow. You have to wait for the experience to get added to the characters before moving on. Again, you can't skip it, and that's really not good when later in the game you can give yourself additional EXP by combining Hermione's EXP booster and Harry's EXP booster. By combining these 2 boosters and then defeating a boss, you have to wait at a victory screen that looks like this. The next 3 objectives are more or less the same. They all involve going to a class, going into a dungeon, collecting something, leaving, and then ending the class. McGonagall and Adam Driver's classes make you pick between party members while one gets left behind. I don't get this at all. What's the point? All that's happening is that one party member is going to miss out on EXP and spell levels, and it's not like the battles are different if you were to have all 3 characters. This game isn't hard by any means, but I was surprised when I would suddenly find the tide of battle turning against me and would have to find a way to soften enemy blows or avoid losing a party member. What I'm saying here is that the combat itself is decent enough, but I wish the game would stop unnecessarily nerfing my team so I can fully enjoy it. Anyone who knows Prisoner of Azkaban through any medium will know that Ron's going to be out of commission by the last leg of our journey, so being able to play with a full party is a luxury that lasts for only so long. After Malfoy gets fucked up by Buckbeak, we get our first minigame. You can fly around on Buckbeak and collect bats, and that's really all there is to say about it. The other minigames are just as much as a pace breaker as this one. They're not horrible by any means, they're just there. After defense against the Dark Arts class, Lupin offers Harry private lessons to defend himself against the Dementors, and then it's off to the common room. Harry and Ron find a broomstick, sent to Harry anonymously. Hermione doesn't trust that shit for a second, so she squeals to McGonagall, and they suspect that it was sent to him from Sirius Black. Hey, wait a second, this doesn't happen in the movie. Not like that anyway. This is something that happens in the book. Something to note about this game is that it actually takes some story moments from the book. Sir Cadogan taking the place of the fat lady after she's attacked, Neville dropping his note of passwords, and Ron mistaking Pettigrew as Sirius Black standing over his bed with a knife are all taken directly from the book. There are people out there who think that a 100% faithful adaptation is the best kind of adaptation. That's bullshit though. Adaptations are unique because they have the opportunity to take a source material and explore it in a different way that still stays true to what the characters would do despite different circumstances. Why is it such a problem if this scene of Harry getting the broomstick was pushed to the end of the movie? That scene's great. Harry wonders who it's from, and then Hermione pulls out the feather, indicating that it's from Sirius. Both scenes are great and fulfill the same purpose, to show that Sirius Black cares about Harry despite his position as a wanted criminal. The message is the same and it gives further depth to the character either way. It just doesn't make sense to me to want the same thing over and over again. If the books still exist, it's not like the films replaced them or anything. We finally reach the part where Lupin teaches Harry how to use his Patronus, and oh my god, get down, gun! That's the effect they went with for the Patronus? It looks like Harry's gunning down the Dementors. I used gun movie effects as a kid, man. I know what a muzzle flare looks like. They couldn't paint bucket that shit and turn it blue or something? Speaking of guns, what do you think Mr. Weasley would do if he was given a gun? Because he's really into collecting muggle objects. Like everyone in the wizard world is like, oh, you know, Avada Kedavra fucking kills people. We can't have that. What would they do if they found out what an AK-47 was and that it casts like 10 Avada Kedavras every second at the pull of a trigger? If Voldemort was using an M4, he'd be fucking still alive. Like, he'd be the protagonist of Harry Potter. And I don't want to hear anything in the comments like, oh, they would just deflect the bullets. Now, every time I've seen spells get fucking deflected, they're moving like arrows from Dark Souls. Also, there's no way they deflect the bullets at the rate of fire that they're going at. Fuck, dude. MatPat retired at the wrong time. I got questions, man. And now here we are, pretty much at the end of the game. Despite taking some cues from the book, this game actually leaves out a lot of other moments. Like the Marauders map just straight up isn't here, or Hogsmeade for that matter. I don't know how much time they had to make this game, and they probably had to follow a pretty strict plan, but an area where you explore underneath Hogwarts with the map, and an area revolving around Hogsmeade probably would have made for interesting dungeons. After Buckbeak's quote-unquote execution, Ron gets taken from the party for the rest of the game. Which is a shame because Ron had Spongify as one of his spells, which lowers enemies' attacks. After defeating the Weeping Willow, we get to another segment where... Game froze for a sec. I thought, holy shit. Thought I was gonna have to reset. There's another segment where we split the party, or what's left of our party anyway. But at this point I could see the finish line, so I was skipping battles anyway. Getting levels was never a problem for me, especially this late into the game. I was using Hermione's EXP booster in every single fight, and then using the EXP boosting combo I talked about earlier, leveling just became such a non-issue. From here on out, the game follows the movie pretty faithfully. The big reveal happens, Adam Driver shows up, and Lupin transforms into a werewolf. Finally, the Dementors suck our souls. Oh my god, get it together. Then Hermione takes us back in time to do it all over again. Eventually we fight Lupin in his werewolf form with Buckbeak. Harry and Hermione can't do anything to him, so Buckbeak is your man here. Harry and Hermione have to stay on healing and stunning duty while Buckbeak and Lupin have it out. It's a slow fight to say the least. Oh man, the Patronus Lake scene. This is like the coolest scene in the entire franchise. Oh man, here it comes. Here it comes! The final dungeon of the game makes us go through yet another party split, but it doesn't last long. We gotta save Sirius from the tower and the Dementors are hot on our trail. This is definitely leading to a final boss. I can feel it. Like the clock is ticking and oppressive force is hot on our heels. They're not hiding it. I wonder who it's gonna be. It's Malfoy. Malfoy? He's only shown up twice. Now he wants to get in our way? Now I always love when games make you fight an enemy that's reminiscent of yourself. You'd expect Malfoy to hit you with spells you know, or his own unique spells, but he just casts a spell. Also, he just looks kind of dopey. Like this isn't the most imposing sprite for him in this battle. The fight is incredibly underwhelming and easy. Malfoy coming out of left field doesn't help either. He doesn't have much agency in the game or in the film for that matter. His main purpose is to get hurt and light the spark for Buckbeak's execution. So definitely not final boss material. It would have been better if Adam Driver was the final boss, since he actually has a good reason to keep Harry from setting Sirius free. It may not sound right from a story perspective, but if they're gonna put Malfoy in our way, then at that point they may as well make it a little more logical. Since I'm talking about changes right now, I think it would probably have been better if they made the Patronus scene at the lake a scripted battle. I'm talking about the second one, by the way. If I could change it, I would have made it where Harry unlocks Expecto Patronum as a battle spell after getting reduced to 1 hit point by the Dementors, and then shooing them away after casting it. Then maybe what they could do is that outside of that fight, Expecto Patronum can be used as a defense boosting spell, and even though you would unlock it near the end of the game, you could still have time to mess with it in New Game Plus, which this game has. Nothing changes though, it just lets you do some cleanup if you're going for a 100% completion. Despite my issues with its linearity, the game is completely functional. Its systems all work the way you'd expect them to. I feel like the developers of this game knew what they were trying to do, but they also knew to not push it too far. This game was definitely made more for Harry Potter fans than it was for RPG fans. I can't say it's bad. This is like a bite-sized version of what you'd expect from more mainstream RPGs. It's crazy to think, but once upon a time, I always looked past the games based on movies. I didn't really give them a chance unless I was gifted a game from a relative. But now video games are seen for their storytelling potential, and companies are seeing opportunities to create new stories with the established worlds instead of just making a game for the sake of marketing. I know there's games out there based on movies that took their own liberties and diverted from the movie's story quite a bit, but not in the way that we're seeing nowadays. And by that I mean we're seeing more and more original stories that can compete with their movie counterparts. Okay, it's time for the end of the video. Play Prisoner of Azkaban for the GBA if you've got a long car trip coming up or a 10-hour plane flight. See ya.